Hey, good morning. It's Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Kind of a cloudy morning up here on Lake Wissota. Rainy in several places throughout central, actually southwest to northeast Wisconsin. Just a nice diagonal right through the state of showers. A little bit of thunderstorm activity moving through Clark County right now as well. But on the program today, after the 6 a.m. news, we will talk about a new surprising red line from Governor Tony Evers, saying that if the next state budget bill does not take care of the child care counts program, he won't sign it. That's the first time he has threatened to not sign a budget bill for something, and it's childcare where he's drawing that red line because the issue is that important. So we'll talk to Corinne Hendrickson, who runs a child care center in New Glarus and has been leading the charge to boost the visibility of the crisis of affordable child care in Wisconsin. We'll talk to Dan Shafer about politics as well, civic media political editor and founder of the Recombobulation area. We will also discuss a new Washington Post story on Wisconsin's congressional districts and the possibility of redistricting here in mid-decade. And if the congressional district lines change, that could change control of Congress nationwide. And we'll talk about a new New York Times feature story on Sean Duffy, the former congressman turned transportation secretary, using his platform to spread a simple message. And it's not about transportation, it's about making more babies. Our show gets started at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. So we will see you back here 4 minutes from now.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, June 24th, 2025. It's another beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're spending your mornings, listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. You might be listening or watching on one of the other platforms we've got out there as well. However you got here, we appreciate it. Thanks for kicking your day off right here. I have got a question for you. Have you opened your windows yet? Are you able to open the windows yet? Now, not everybody can. There's a line of showers that stretches from basically Platteville to the Dells to Shawano to Marinette. There's a little shower activity in Clark County back to Pierce County that's dissipating right now. But once it gets past, you can open the windows. It's 63 here. It's 20 degrees cooler than yesterday at this time up here in the Chippewa Valley. And it is just downright pleasant to be able to do that. For now, we've got chances of rain, throughout the coming days here, and Brittany Merlot will be here with full forecast details coming up in just a bit. But coming up on the program today, a surprising update in the state budget debate at the state capitol. Governor Tony Evers has drawn a red line and said that without one particular thing in the state budget bill that Republicans are going to send him, he won't sign it. And it deals with the crisis of affordable childcare in Wisconsin. So we'll have more to say about that throughout the course of the morning, including at 7:30 with Corinne Hendrickson. She's a childcare operator from New Glarus. She has been leading the charge to help improve public awareness of the crisis that's being endured in Wisconsin by providers, by parents, by childcare workers. So many more people are aware of just how bad things are out there, except it seems some Republicans in the legislature who are still in denial or don't value the role of childcare because they just as soon mom or maybe dad stay at home. Along those lines, the New York Times has a new feature story on Sean Duffy, the former congressman from up north and the current U.S. Transportation Secretary. He is using his platform to spread a message, and it's not about transportation. It's make more babies because it's good for America. But what we wonder is it all babies or just a certain group of them, given his record on supporting or not supporting new parents, people who need food assistance for their kids, WIC, affordable housing, good schools, anything else that would help families grow for families that don't have jobs on TV or connections in politics. We'll visit with Dan Shafer of the Recombobulation area, Civic Media's political editor, and we'll talk about a new Washington Post story on Wisconsin's congressional districts. There are 8 of them. We have the same maps in place for this as we did in the last decade. The legislative maps got changed. The congressional ones did not. But right here, smack dab in the middle of the decade, there is a chance the lines might be redrawn. And if so, that could decide control of Congress nationwide. So a lot of people, once again, looking at Wisconsin as kind of the bellwether for how things could go in the rest of the country. All right, we mentioned that Brittany will be here in an hour. Her state forecast says chances for rain throughout the rest of the week as a front stalls across the state, also setting up the potential for some flooding in places. The forecast for today says it's going to be sunny up north, clouds and scattered showers south, highs today in the mid to upper 70s with a light northeasterly wind. So different than that windy, hot south wind that we had all weekend. For tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, some lingering showers south. Lows tonight in the mid-50s up north, low 60s south with a light wind. And again, temperatures in the low 60s in many parts of Wisconsin right now. Alicia on YouTube. Oh, hey there. Hi. Yes, hi. Nice to see you. Thank you there for being there. Roger in Stevens Point on Facebook says it's much better outside this morning. 66 in Stevens Point on refuse collection day. So if it's trash day, get those cans out there. And meanwhile, down in Madison in Studio A2, we find Parker Olson standing by. How are you this morning?
Doing pretty good, Pat. I am a little tireder than I wanted to be today, but that's part of the job.
Did you have a Mallards game last night, or do
No,
something else?
I didn't.
Okay.
I fell asleep for the first probably like 6 innings of the Brewer game, woke up for the end of it, was very disappointed, and now here I am.
Well, that's exactly where I was on. I watched the Brewer game, the first part of it anyway. I was very excited to see the Brewers coming back in the 5th inning. Christian Yelich with a game-tying home run in the 5th inning. I'm like, okay, we're on our way. And then the Pirates get a go-ahead triple in the 6th, and they hang on to win 5-4. But that home run by Yelich, I like the way it just stayed fair. And I mean, he's been hot lately. It says here in his past 7 games, he is 16 for 30 with 14 runs batted in. I mean, I did not know that this Christian Yelich was going to come back, to be honest.
After he broke his kneecap, I didn't think we'd ever see him be anywhere near great again. And would you say 16 for 30? That's pretty great.
I would say batting better than 500 is good that way. Yeah, that is just fine. Freddie Peralta is pitching in Game 2 of the series tonight with the Pirates. Pregame is going to start at 6:05 on several Civic Media radio stations. And then there is that pitching matchup tomorrow afternoon. A hot new rookie, Jacob Mizorowski for the Brewers, Paul Skeens for the Pirates. It's going to be an early afternoon game. There's going to be all kinds of people taking off for work, making up some kind of excuses, like maybe they don't feel great, or maybe they got to go take care of some errands that happen to be at American Family Field. Parker, you don't know anybody like that, do you?
No, not anybody at all. No, definitely nobody here in Madison A2 that would want to do that.
Well, that's good. We've got I've just scheduled a special team meeting for the show. 105 tomorrow afternoon. Are you free to make that?
I guess I can make it if you really would like.
No, I really would not. So
okay.
But yeah, I've seen a few other people whose either their workplace has a block of tickets or they have tickets, and yeah, that game tomorrow, that ticket's getting really popular all of a sudden. So, and again, there's no guarantee, but boy, if that pitching matchup lives up to its potential, tomorrow afternoon's game is going to be a lot of fun.
That could be the pitcher duel of the year, honestly. Yeah, I want to look and see what those tickets are going for, because that sounds like they're probably could run that up.
Yes, consider that an assignment. Yeah, let us know when you see what's happening on the ticket prices. And while you do, I have to mention that yesterday, and I think this was around 7:30 or so. We had the one daughter and 2 kids here, so the 6-year-old and the 3-year-old made a quick appearance on screen here right before they took off, and they had an 8-hour drive ahead of them to get back home. And 8-9 hours later, I sent a text to my daughter, and or she texted first, say that she'd made it back all right, and I said, I hope the trip went well. Thanks for coming out and everything. And she says, she's asked me a question. Let me set it up by saying that, again, the 6-year-old, the 3-year-old, they both have tablets, in the back seat, so you can download movies on them. So each has their favorite, Disney movie or whatever, Nickelodeon, things that are on there. And then they've got their headphones and they sit in the back seat. And it's, that works when you've got an 8-hour drive. That's what you want. And I remember my daughter saying the night before to the kids, with each one, okay, here I've got Little Mermaid, I've got Aladdin, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Is that good? Yeah. And then the other one, okay, so I've got Bluey and I've got this and that. Is that good? Yeah. So fast forward to her getting home and sending a text that says, true or false? The 6-year-old at one point announced, I deleted my downloads. I don't want them anymore, with 3.5 hours yet to drive. I don't want these downloads anymore. I've deleted them. All I sent back was 99 bottles of beer on the wall, because we didn't have tablets when we were kids. We sang 99 verses of a song to get through it all. But I thought that was great. And it reminded me of our first grandchild, who is now 18. And when we had a long drive with him and with his now uncle, who was my daughter's boyfriend at the time, and he fell asleep. But before he did, he gave his iPad to Mason, who was, I don't know, maybe 8 years old at the time, I'm guessing. And when my son-in-law woke up and saw that whatever game he was playing, he'd amassed all these credits. I forget what kind of a game it was, but you amass all these different credits that you can use to, like, quote unquote, buy things that, more equipment for your game, maybe more weapons, whatever the case might be. He wakes up and sees that his number of credits is down to 0. And he turns to the 8-year-old like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I bought all kinds of stuff." And he looks, he's got all the stuff that the character does not need, but there was a shop, So you got to be careful with those pads, those iPads, those tablets can be really helpful. But you got to watch them. Got to watch them with the kids. Are you finding some ticket prices there?
I am finding some ticket prices here.
What are you learning?
I am seeing anywhere from like low mid 20s for the nosebleeds.
Sure.
To, well, if you want to sit behind the Pirates dugout, you're looking at maybe $200.
$200. Whew.
It's going to be a good game. I think they're excited.
It is. And no, I don't know the weather forecast for tomorrow night in Milwaukee, but boy, if it's anywhere decent, I mean, people are going to say, yes, let's bring in the little grill. Let's go make a day of it. In other words, if you're in that area, if you work in that area, then I have, worked in the Milwaukee area, on certain game days, find a new route home. So consider yourself on notice, Milwaukeeans. If you're not going to the game tomorrow afternoon, and that game's going to end somewhere in the 4:30 area, just find it. Do not plan on taking 94. Okay. Yeah.
That sounds bad.
Same goes for you. Just camp out there. I like the reverse tailgating. Like, you know what? We're going to tailgate here for an hour plus after the game and let this crowd go down.
Not a bad idea, because it is miserable getting out of there sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Roger notes that Yelich has raised his batting average by 79 points since May 21st, which sounds about right. Like I said, because this has not been a whole season thing. He started the season kind of, flatline, shall we say. Yeah. And then it just has built right up. So somebody has been eating his Wheaties, which is a good thing. Nobody says that anymore. Is Wheaties even advertised anymore?
Oh, God, I have no idea.
Probably not, because, I mean, here's the thing. Wheaties, the breakfast of champions and all that. And you go, well, why? Did we eat it much? Did our generation? No, we did not. You know what? Because it tastes like gravel. I don't know what Wheaties were made out of, but they were not your typical cornflakes, shall we say. So,
I hope that Jackson Churio has a sponsorship with churros.
Churros? Yes, you got to get him some churros. Matt and Aaron Air coming up at 9 a.m. after this fine program. Todd Alba will be joining the program at 9:30. From the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota. Thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Couldn't remember the word Cheerios for a second there.
Cheerio? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what's that cereal?
Roger, add raisins to the Wheaties. It's fine. I don't know if raisins could do it. Maybe sitting in a bowl of milk for a week would help. I mean, I would lose a crown.
Oh, God.
No, they were very branny, shall we say?
I believe it. Genuinely don't know if I've had Wheaties. Probably not.
See, that just goes to show you that, you can do all the marketing in the world, but ultimately if your product isn't, something everybody wants to be a part of all the time. You know, it's like, oh, I got your photo on a box of Wheaties. Great. Will you eat those? Nope.
It's more of a collectible than a food.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've got a couple of boxes of Wheaties downstairs that are collectibles from some championship or whatever, World Series, Super Bowl. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got, my dad kept a bunch of Sports Illustrated covers, and we've got them like framed all over our basement.
Mm-hmm. But see that, you know, that's a good collectible. You know, you get some news, you get some news in the magazine, and then you save the cover. So, all right, let's what do we got here? 620. Okay. All right. Let's do that. You can stay up to date on everything we're covering at Up North News, the news and the features. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe in the banner on top of the homepage. This morning's edition from Christina Laurie just came out, including this story: 3 states where Wisconsinites are coming from and moving to. She notes that on average, Wisconsin adds about 12,000 new residents a year. Where are they coming from? The real estate marketing company Hypewired decided to find out using Google search data for terms like move to, relocate to, homes in, followed by the name of each state. They found some of the most popular relocation destinations in America. Of the top 3 states that want to move to Wisconsin, there's Minnesota, where the average house price is $332,000, meaning a move to Wisconsin to get an average house could cut their costs by $38,000. Same goes for Illinois and Iowa, where again, housing prices can definitely vary. As far as where Wisconsinites are thinking about moving to, the top 3 are Florida, Texas, and Tennessee, because again, many of the fastest growing U.S. cities are in the southern U.S. Now, of course, there's another way of looking at that. When you see the difference in house prices, say in Minnesota versus Illinois, you also see the signs of a strong economy there, which again gets us into what legislatures are prioritizing in all those other states. But regardless, to learn more about that and more in our newsletter, head to the website upnorthnewswi.com. The New York Times put out a feature story yesterday on Sean Duffy. And essentially, this is somebody else's phrase, but that Sean Duffy and his wife, Rachel Campos Duffy, both reality TV stars, preached the prosperity gospel of having large families, and that having many children is the key to saving America. For example, the story notes that in a 2023 episode of a Fox podcast that they co-host, Sean Duffy said, quote, "If you make the decision of a big family, I think your kids are better. I think you're better." The report says even as Duffy focuses on air traffic reforms, tackling issues exposed by the plane crash at Reagan National in January, his policies and perspectives are shaped by the conviction that women should be having more children. Early in his tenure at the Transportation Department, Mr. Duffy signed a controversial memo pledging to prioritize transportation funding for regions with higher birth rates and marriage rates, an approach that Democratic senators have called, quote, deeply frightening and disturbingly dystopian. The story goes on to say, as the Trump administration seeks to both exude macho masculinity and encourage men to settle down, some conservatives see Mr. Duffy as an important cultural figure who offers a middle way, a red-blooded American male who once scored with reality TV stars. He is now a devoted dad with his own chicken coop and beehives, publicly pledging his commitment to his wife and their old Chrysler minivan. Like Mr. Trump, who also crafted his image on reality TV, Mr. Duffy understands what will get people to turn on a show and to keep watching. And if that sounds like the overall article is going to be, well, let me put it this way. It is very indicative of what the rest of the article is going to be like. If you go into a piece like this already thinking about the Duffys, what you just heard in that last paragraph, this article is not going to change your mind. This is, again, somebody who, how do I put this right? Your success as a man, or a family for that matter, some people believe that your success is measured by your fertility. And honestly, that's a sad way to look at things. If you have the means to have that many children, and, you know, Sean Duffy is from a family of 11 children. He now has 9 children of his own. If you have the means to do that, then good for you. But it's a little odd hearing that from somebody who had served in Congress and to put it kindly, was part of a Republican Party that does not have a great track record of supporting young families or growing families, whether it's, wages and affordable housing, good schools, WIC and other food assistance, childcare, you name it, from a group of folks that, this is actually kind of new talk about having more babies. What have we typically heard? We've typically heard, oh, those families that just keep making more babies and then they want the rest of us to support them. So I think the caring and the rah-rahing for large families does not apply evenly across the board, if you know what I'm saying. But there he is with a very long feature about how this former bad boy of reality TV is now devoted, and trying to work ways to have the make more babies thing be part of official policy. And I've heard this repeatedly from Republicans who talk about, oh, our birth rate is so low and we just got to get more people making babies. Are you so anti-immigrant? Are you so against people who aren't exactly like you that instead of embracing the immigration that made this country great in the first place, that you're just going to say to a certain segment of the population, if you all are more fertile, your country will be better off? I just think there are better ways to support all families, and we should have expected better from him in Congress, and we should expect better with him as our transportation secretary. Again, be tuning into Civic Media shows throughout the day here on the Todd Alba Show. Alex Modorsky of the Nature Conservancy talking about the Nels Knowles Stewardship Update. That's at 3:30 on the Todd Alba Show. More from Lake Wissota coming up after this. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Coming up tomorrow on the program, we will have what you would call a civic media potpourri. We have all of our civic media friends that normally join us on Wednesdays: Earl Ingram out of Milwaukee, Todd Alba in Madison, Melissa Kay in Wisconsin Rapids, James Kelly in Chippewa Falls, all telling us about the things they're working on for civic media programs, news, stations, and more. That's all tomorrow here on these mornings, powered by Up North News. If you'd like to hear the program and not have to get up at the crack o' dawn, well, you can pod this program, listen to us anytime by subscribing to the show as a podcast. You can find Mornings with Pat Kreitlow on Spotify and Apple, and you can listen to back episodes over at the website civicmedia.us as well. You can reach the show, of course, by using the Civic Media app to send us a text. You can email us, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. But on that Civic Media app, there's also the ability to leave us a voice note. So again, you can text the program, but you can also use the voice note feature to record a little audio clip with your question or your comment. Parker will get it and potentially play it and have us respond to that as well. So look for that voice note feature on the Civic Media app. Over at Courier Newsroom, the parent company to Up North News, there's a wide array of newsletters and podcasts and video series, and I want to share one of them with you here, and then we're going to talk about Governor Evers drawing a line in the sand when it comes to the state budget and childcare. But first, at couriernewsroom.com, you can find the newsletter Control, Alt, Right, Delete from Melissa Ryan. And here's a little bit of her new column called Humanity and Pride. Solidarity is the only way forward. She says, who is granted humanity? Who is deemed worthy of rights and freedoms of health care, free expression, the vote, a voice in civic life? Who in the eyes of society has the right to simply exist? She writes, the MAGA regime and the movement that helped bring it to power are attempting to redefine humanity and who has access to it in real time. It's not enough for them to believe that not everyone should have a seat at that table or access social and political capital. This movement, led by Donald Trump, has declared war on the right of marginalized communities to exist. They've empowered themselves with a mandate to cause as much harm as possible in service of this mission. The right-wing majority of the Supreme Court is more than happy to serve this agenda, as we were reminded again last week when it upheld a Tennessee law banning gender-affirming care for minors. I'll let the experts break down what this case means from a legal standpoint, but it's a blow to the trans community, in particular, families with children who are transgender seeking care. One of the most disheartening developments of the last decade is how we've gone from broad public support for the idea that transgender individuals deserve human dignity to continually just asking questions and putting the humanity of trans individuals up for debate. The divide and conquer aspect is especially gross. As marriage equality became the law of the land, LGBTQ rights became more accepted by most Americans, so the right needed a new boogeyman. They easily found one, latching onto a vulnerable community and the children within that community. Far too many people who don't consider themselves right-wing were more than happy to take the bait. To read the rest of Melissa Ryan's column on humanity and pride, head over to couriernewsroom.com. Again, all kinds of newsletters and podcasts and video series there, couriernewsroom.com. And Melissa Ryan's newsletter is Control, Alt, Right, Delete. Well, I'm going to tell you, I was surprised when I saw the story late yesterday that Governor Tony Evers had made some comments after visiting a child care center. It was one in Pewaukee, and he had stopped at one in Eau Claire earlier in the day and made a statement that said he will not sign the next state budget bill, a 2-year spending plan for the state, unless it includes payments to child care providers in a program known as Child Care Counts. Now, a lot of this information comes from a Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel story by Jesse O'Point and Hope Carnop. Evers hinted that the Child Care Counts program was part of negotiations over the state budget. Republicans have pitched alternatives they argue would more directly help parents who have high costs. Work overall on the state budget came to a halt last week, Evers has since urged Republicans to, quote, get their act together and come back and let's finish it up. It's necessary for people to understand, Evers said, Republicans especially, how important this is for the state of Wisconsin. Not supporting child care counts, he says, is going to hurt not only our kids, but our economy. So let's go back and talk about child care counts and what that is. I don't think I need to set up the entire affordable child care problem here. We have fewer people that are going into child care. They've had to raise prices as a result. That's put it out of reach for parents. And so some parents have had to make the decision to leave the labor force. You know, again, we're in a labor shortage like never before. We're sending mobs out to kidnap immigrants, and we're telling parents, well, if you can't afford childcare, then which is part of why you would get a second job, well, then you're just out of luck, and we'll just continue to exacerbate the worker shortage. Childcare counts took some of the federal pandemic relief that came in. That federal pandemic relief, by the way, that saved the American economy. I get really tired when I hear people going, oh, yeah, the federal government, they threw so much money out during the pandemic, and it's what caused inflation. It is not what caused inflation. Worldwide disruptions in supply chains and then the quick bounce back after the pandemic created inflation. The investments made through the CARES Act and the Rescue Plan and all the rest were what prevented the Depression. And one of those instances was the Child Care Counts program, because remember, we talked about frontline workers during the pandemic, people that needed to keep going to work even though people were dropping dead left and right. But for those essential workers to go back to work, they needed a place to put their kids. And we already knew before the pandemic that there was a child care problem in this country. And so Child Care Counts helped provide financial support to child care providers so that they could keep their rates affordable and hold on to workers, pay them better than poverty wages to care for our children. Well, that federal pandemic money, of course, is running out or has run out in many instances, depending on the program. And Governor Evers has looked at how this program has helped. And as he has explained to the legislature repeatedly, this worked. This worked. When you use some of our investment, and again, we have a $4 billion surplus, when you invest some of that into childcare to make sure that everybody who wants to be a productive part of the economy can get out and work to their full potential and contribute to the economy, but feel good that their kid is going to a quality childcare provider, I mean, that's as win-win as it gets. And yet Republicans in the legislature have turned a cold shoulder to it. In some cases have been just downright hostile to it, thinking that this is some kind of a welfare handout for people who maybe should just stay home, without any explanation as to what other ideas do you have then to address the labor shortage and to help with the affordability of families. Again, back to our last segment, it doesn't make sense for Sean Duffy or anybody else with big families in politics to tell other people, oh, we need you to be making more babies out there, if we're not willing to make the investments. And childcare is an investment, same as schools. I mean, go way, way back to when public education first got its start in the 1800s, when the idea of a free public education was downright radical. Going, what? We're gonna create schools? I mean, look, if some wealthy family wants to send their kid to a school, that's their right. But we got to milk these cows. We got to put horseshoes on these horses. Whatever we got to do, we got to make these barrels. No, we should have that opportunity for children to learn. And so, yeah, it was a radical idea back then. No different now than people going, wait, childcare? Well, but that's part of the education of our children. And we're going to talk to Corinne Hendrickson in our next hour about this, about the child care counts. But she did put out a statement yesterday as a child care provider herself. And she helps make the connection that we, she says about child care, are usually the first ones to talk with parents and support them and their child through the up to 3-year-old school district process. Without qualified educators, those children are often expelled from school instead of supported. Without our universities and technical colleges fully funded, we won't have educators to teach the next generation the skills they need to thrive in their lives and in their careers. It's all interconnected. Our responsibility that we should feel for the education of our children does not start in kindergarten. It should be starting well before then, making sure that they are in places where, they are not only safe and cared for, but where their little brains are being developed. It's why you want good schools as well, so that they're not getting expelled, so that they are excelling. Alicia writes on YouTube, I've seen people say, why should I pay for other people's kids? I would say, do they like working extra shifts because there aren't enough people? Because again, there are so many ways that we can work, in Alicia notes, and it doesn't end at 12th grade either. Right. Thank you for clarifying that for me as well. So it all comes together, and Governor Evers understands that. He is, of course, pushing for, improving funding of our public schools, K through 12. He's dealing with a legislature right now that not only does not want to more adequately fund the universities of Wisconsin system, but actually wants to cut state support to the UW. What's their crime? The crime of embracing diversity, equity, inclusion. The thing that corporate America has wrapped its arms around and said, if we want a strong workforce, we have to understand that not every one of our workers is going to come from the 54729 if you're up here in Chippewa Falls. All right? We need people from all over, outside of this county's borders, this state's borders, this country's borders, but we're not going to get that if these qualified people face hostility when they come here. Let's work together on how we can understand each other better. And that seems to be the biggest deficiency in this Republican-led legislature, is not wanting to know how we can understand each other better. And I'm not talking about people from different cultures. I'm saying these folks in the legislature are having a tough time understanding childcare and working parents. And so Governor Evers is pushing some chips into the center of the table and saying, look, you can write a budget bill. Maybe you're going to want to cut UW funding. Maybe you're going to want to just give tax cuts to the very wealthy, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that he can line item veto. There's a lot of things he can negotiate, but you can't line item veto something beyond zero. And if there's zero in the Child Care Counts program, he now says he's just not going to sign the bill at all. And we'll talk to Corinne Hendrickson more about that coming up at about 7:30. On the Maggie Dawn Show today from 4 till 6, Angela Lang is co-guest host starting at 4 o'clock. Emily Miota from Kids Forward will be joining Maggie at 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, Nick Ramos of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign talking about their lawsuit against Elon Musk for billionaire voter bribery, money in politics, and the prospect of having fair maps into the next decade. Today's history lesson is next, as we always do, mornings, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. Is that really from the production library?
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like an actual song. Let's see which. I can't think of which one it would be. Come on. I hate YouTube ads so much.
I got an ad blocker for the computers here.
Okay, it ain't that one, but that's weird. Okay. Send me a link to that, because I want to find the song that I know is just very much like that. Anyway, we should be getting some history notes here.
universal sound, where art thou?
The 70s. Such a lighter, sweeter, more innocent time when you could hear couples like the Captain and Tennille singing to about love will keep us together. This was the number one song 50 years ago this week. I know, it's today's daily exercise, and Pat going, 50 years ago? Really? Yes, Captain and Tennille's number one hit, Love Will Keep Us Together, was 50 years ago this week, 1975. On this day in 1922, the American Professional Football Association changed their name. They had to, because it's a lot. It's much more telegenic, whatever you want to call it, to say the National Football League.
It's got more oomph.
Yeah, it's got the National Football League has much more oomph than the American Professional Football Association is proud to present the Steelers versus the 49ers. It's the National Football League. Who's the guy that did the NFL films for all those years with the big voice?
I don't know his name, but yeah.
Sadden or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. So the NFL, I got a name change this day in 1922. Happy 80th birthday to Colin Blunstone, lead singer of the Zombies. If this sounds familiar.
It does sound familiar. I did not recognize the breathing in it.
Well, but some of the little keyboard coming up right here. That.
Yeah.
I looked. I'm like, where have I heard that sampled? The list is too long to name. There's like well over a dozen songs that have sampled parts of Time of the Season by the Zombies. And Colin Blunstone, lead singer, is 80 years old today. The Zombies also gave us She's Not There, Tell Her No, She's Coming Home, and so forth. Guitar legend Jeff Beck, the late Jeff Beck, was born this day in 1944, passed away 2 years ago. At age 20, he replaced Eric Clapton in the Yardbirds. He later formed the Jeff Beck Group. In 1985, he released Flash, featuring a variety of vocalists, most notably Rod Stewart, on a remake of Curtis Mayfield's People Get Ready. Happy birthday to Mick Fleetwood, part of the namesake of Fleetwood Mac. I was looking to see if Mick Fleetwood had like any specific, writing credit. Obviously, he was a drummer. He was a key member of the group, and everything that you'd read about Fleetwood Mac wasn't so much that this person did all the writing and this person did all this. It was a big mishmash. They spent way too much time together. They did way too much cocaine together. They hated each other, and the result was a masterpiece.
Excellent music can be bred from hate.
That is rock and roll right there. Cocaine and hate.
That's why we get so much great music today.
Just making it sound like the devil's music here. Actress Mindy Kaling is 46 years old today. I like this one. Now, Glenn Medeiros was kind of a one-hit wonder back in the mid-'80s. Here's as a teenage singer, born in Hawaii 55 years ago today. Here was his big hit. You wanna know how much I love you. I really like this because you have to go back and look at the video. I mean, he is so not Disney Channel ready. It's like very awkward trying to sing to this girl. But he was a heartthrob for about an hour and a half. And to this day, he's got this daughter on social media who clearly fans still recognize him or whatever. And she mocks, that her dad was a teenage heartthrob. The way anybody would if you found out later on, like your dorky dad was a teenage heartthrob, really?
That's awesome.
It is funny stuff. It's great. So Glenn Medeiros is 55 years old today. Chuck Taylor. It's not just the name of a shoe. He was a basketball player and a salesman. Born this day in 1901. Died in 1969. And people talk about having their Chucks or their Chuck Taylors. And yeah, it was a guy born this day in 1901. On this day in 2003, Beyonce released her first solo album entitled Dangerously in Love. Here's the standout track from that. But if you don't say just how you look, do know just It featured her then boyfriend, later husband Jay-Z, and she did all right after that.
She did okay.
22 years ago. On this day in 2022, so 3 years ago today, the movie Elvis hit theaters starring Austin Butler as Presley. And I know you haven't seen this one yet, right? I know I've recommended it on air before. Again, it's not a documentary, so go with it. But it's very interesting. It came out 3 years ago today. Also 3 years ago today, a couple of serious news notes now in today's history lesson was the Dobbs decision. Dr. Kristen Lyerly talked to us about that yesterday. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, where an extremist U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and ruled that the Constitution does not assign the authority to regulate abortions in the federal government and returning activity to the individual states. A checkerboard of women's reproductive health rights has been around ever since. On this day 4 years ago, I think maybe a lot of folks have forgotten about this, but down in Surfside, Florida, remember when that condominium tower collapsed? It was called Champlain Towers. Collapsed this day in 2021, killing 98 people inside, which seemed kind of weird to first hear about it. And then somebody found security footage that showed it coming down. And just imagine you're seeing this apartment building there and it just comes down.
I completely forgot about that.
People knew that, there was water running in the parking structure. They knew that the foundation had issues. It's right there on the beach, but nothing bad's going to happen, right? Wrong. And on this day 2 years ago, the Wagner Group, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, launched an insurrection against the Russian government. And remember, we all thought that Prigozhin was going to get to Moscow and Putin was going to be dead in 48 hours. And somehow or another, Prigozhin said, no, I'm all good here. And he was the one who was gone very shortly thereafter. Corinne Hendrickson talking about childcare in our next hour on these mornings, powered by Up North News and here on the Civic Media Radio Network. And today is National Fix Your Windows and Doors Day.
Oh, boy.
That's it. That was it for the list. National Fix Your Windows and Doors Day. Well, and other stuff that it didn't even rise to the level of Fix Your Windows and Doors Day. So
nothing gets so exciting.
Today was like National Pralines Day. What's a praline anyway?
I have no idea what a praline is. It says Farmer Day on here.
Yeah, now click on it and look, where is it National Farmer Day? Peru.
Peru.
It's
Okay.
why are you on the website? I mean, nothing to get Peru, you're a lovely country, but I just want to know where the holidays here today. So
Huh.
anyway. All right.
Well,
I'll be back.
I guess.
Yep.
It is National Swim a Lap Day. If you feel like getting to the pool. It's Messi's birthday. Did Pat miss that? Greatest soccer player ever. Possibly. I don't follow soccer. I don't know.
How's Brittany today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good too.
Good.
Except I see that front hasn't reached everybody yet.
No.
All right.
Pain in the
15.
butt.
Dave in New Berlin will give us an update next.
Cool.
Here we go.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It is 7:06. Nice to have you here up north on this Tuesday morning, June 24th, 2025. Brittany Merlot coming up, Parker Olson over in Madison Studio A2, and coming up this hour, Corinne Hendrickson from New Glarus, a childcare provider who has been leading the fight to build public awareness of the crisis of affordable childcare here in Wisconsin, to the point where Governor Evers has also been a strong ally and is now drawing a red line when it comes to the state budget in terms of support for child care providers as a way to help working parents and the economy and the labor shortage and all of that and more, all coming up. Then in our 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Chad Holmes from 98.9 WXCO in Wausau, and we'll visit with Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area and Civic Media Politics editor. We'll have some of the other day's news stories to pass along, including Wisconsin connections to the big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill that Trump and Republicans are working on out in Washington, D.C., the impact that is being felt here with layoffs at Wisconsin Public Radio, and Senator Ron Johnson saying, well, we may be going to war with Iran, but that just has me even more driven to cut Medicaid. So we've got those stories and more coming up along the way here. Let's see. First off, I've got, from Alicia. Oh, just wants to do the introduction. The one, the only, Brittany Merlot. Well, there she is, as introduced by Alicia on YouTube. Brittany, good morning. How are you?
Thank you, Alicia. I'm pretty good this morning. How are you guys doing?
We're good here. I talked about how it's glorious to have the window open. It's just great. It is, 64 here now in Chippewa Falls. However, I am reminded by Dave in New Berlin on the text line, good morning, Pat. The front hasn't made it to my area yet. It's partly cloudy and 76 in New Berlin, 74 at work in Milwaukee. But I assume it's coming statewide that everybody's going to get some relief from the heat.
We're trying. By tomorrow, I think the entire state's going to have some relief, but that front is just draped right now. It's kind of sitting from La Crosse, Toma, all the way to about Green Bay and into the Fox Valley, and areas from there and south. You're looking at chances of more scattered showers and storms sparking up again by midday and becoming widespread as we go into tomorrow, as this front wants to lift more north, bringing heavier rain rates further north by tomorrow. So what we've got going on today, still dealing with some damage in central Wisconsin and into the Fox Valley this morning. Winds yesterday gusted from 50 to 70 miles per hour. It ripped trees down, covering roads, onto cars. It even, heavy rainfall kind of made some roofs fall into Madison area too. So we saw anything from 1.5 inches to 3.5 inches of rain in Toma, 2.5 into Madison. So still trying to dry things out with more rain on the way. So potential for more flash flooding as we go through this afternoon and evening, especially south where that front is still sitting and along the state line. Some of these storms are going to be strong, but they shouldn't be so severe. Yesterday was probably the worst of it, but we do still have a little bit of a risk as we go through today. Now, in terms of rainfall rates, I think a good 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch will be in these storms. Some places could get hit heavy again with another inch or two, especially west and especially south. Otherwise, today highs will hit the mid-70s, pretty much statewide, low 80s far south, and then that relief tomorrow, mid-50s to mid-70s.
Wow. And those derecho straight line winds in North Dakota and northern Minnesota. I was looking at video from Bemidji, Minnesota, and the number of trees down is just staggering. what
Yes.
that system had done. Rob says, good morning from Tigerton. It's cloudy and 69. Yesterday, Tigerton had a high of 90 degrees for a third straight 90-degree day before the storms came in the afternoon. Yesterday, I got 4 mowing jobs done in Tigerton before the thunder and lightning. I want to thank my mechanic, Todd, for getting my truck fixed. He said Tigerton had only 0.2 of an inch of rain, missed the really bad storms. A semi-truck was blown over on Highway 10 near Amherst. Power lines were down by Lake Collins Park near Amherst. And thank you, Brittany, for always keeping us up to date on the weather and the local news in central Wisconsin from an award-winning news anchor and reporter. And Tony reports that, hey, up in Ashland, it's chilly there too, 59 degrees. And Alicia, it looks grumpy outside, but it is so nice and cool. And that's a good way of putting it. It did. The sky did look a little grumpy a little earlier here, you know?
Yes. I'm going to have to use that all day. Thank you, Alicia.
The sky is grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a Stevie Ray Vaughan song that starts, "The sky is crying." We got to get a new version. "The sky is grumpy" with Brittany Merlot. All right, we will look forward to that. Thank you, Brittany. We'll get an update next hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, along the way, as some of the other folks have been doing, you can jump onto social media and you can join us that way. Follow us on social media on the Facebook and YouTube pages for Up North News or for Civic Media. And you can follow me on social media as well. I've got a Facebook page that's called Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. So just go to facebook.com/Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. And you can also follow me at Pat Kreitlow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. But again, you can text us through the Civic Media app as well. And when we've got those phones ready to rock and roll again with the remodeling being done in Madison Studio A2, we'll get that up and going for you as well. But in the meantime, I mean, Parker stands by in Madison A2 to look at your voice notes, listen to your voice notes. You can do those through the Civic Media app as well. As we learned last week when Tony put his kids up there and we could, hear directly from people that wanted to make intros. Well, look, you had Alicia there on YouTube saying, the one, the only, Brittany Merlot. I feel like people should get on those voice notes and just make generic introductions. I just want to hear you going, and now here's Brittany Merlot with the weather or something along those lines. Yeah.
It brings some more life to the show, Pat. I like that.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm really tired still, Pat. It's not you with me.
Bringing more life to the show, I'm sure, is what you meant. Absolutely. Yes. So again, use that voice note feature on the Civic Media app and send us letters or sometimes send us encouragement and notes to wake up, if you will. All right. Also, Up North News has newsletters 7 days a week now, our Monday through Friday edition with news and features, a Saturday sports edition, a Sunday politics edition that I put together in all cases. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com to learn more and get signed up for 1, 2, or all 3 of those newsletters. A lot of things happening with Civic Media today. We've got on the Todd Alba Show this afternoon, Alex Madorsky of the Nature Conservancy talking about the Nelson Knolls Stewardship Update. We talked about that before where, the stewardship program puts land into conservation so that, we don't end up someday like other places that are thoroughly overdeveloped and nobody says, hey, did we not think at some point not to overbuild, to set some stuff aside? But of course, we have Republicans in the legislature who have said, no, we've conserved enough land. We don't need to do anything more than that. Some folks are trying to find a nice middle ground between the parties, and we may be at that point. So listen to Todd's show later this afternoon to find out more about that. You can also get local news updates on the web because besides having a newsroom with statewide reach, just like us at Up North News, our friends at Civic Media have you covered with local news updates that you can get from each individual station. You go to civicmedia.us, and then from there, find your local Civic Media radio station, or a local Civic Media station, if you will. And then when you go to that local station's page, you'll see something called Daily News Roundup that you can listen to right there. You can also sign up for email versions of their daily update while you're there as well. So head over to civicmedia.us to learn more. Tony on YouTube. But what if we tried overbuilding and mined the state and the national lands? I think Tom Tiffany is testing that out. Yes, I believe he is. And if you needed no other reason to be supportive of stewardship and land conservation, let me just remind you that, again, Tom Tiffany is still a member of Congress. So you might want to try to keep northern Wisconsin as northern Wisconsin. In Washington, D.C., you've got Republicans considering Donald Trump's big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill, which we've talked extensively about the potential cuts to Medicaid and other vital programs, but the reductions in federal spending are impacting folks in many different ways. For example, support for public radio and TV. You know, the thing that makes sure that it's not just corporations that get to determine what our news and entertainment will be. But Wisconsin Public Radio announced, according to an article by Henry Redmond in the Wisconsin Examiner, that it is laying off at least 15 staff members and canceling 4 radio programs as the station faces budget shortages and the looming prospect of cuts to federal funding. The canceled programs included the nationally syndicated To the Best of Our Knowledge, the Arts and Culture Show Beta, the health show Zorba Pastor on Your Health, and the local University of the Air. Republicans have been considering a proposal to rescind money previously allocated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which distributes those federal funds to local stations across the country. Earlier this month, the House of Representatives voted to take $1.1 billion away from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the Senate has until mid-July to pass its own version of the provision. About 4% of Wisconsin Public Radio's budget comes from federal funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. For the rest of that story by Henry Redmond, head over to wisconsinexaminer.com. Now, there are all kinds of ways that the budget debate and the war with Iran are making headlines. It's not often that people would necessarily conflate the two, but leave it to Ron Johnson to do so. Johnson saying that the prospect of war with Iran, according to a story in the website Raw Story, makes him just that much more determined to cut Medicaid. The actual headline from Raw Story, Ron Johnson, Iran strike strengthens my resolve to pass a bill cutting Medicaid. Talking to one of his favorite media mouthpieces, Maria Bartiromo, he talked about how dedicated he is to passing something that could strip health care away from more than 10 million Americans. Bartiromo said, "Does this change anything for you, knowing that we are now looking at a world where our adversaries are on the march?" Bartiromo said, talking about Iran. Johnson said, "No, if anything, it just strengthens my resolve. I mean, how do we expect to defend this nation if we're mortgaging its future, if we're bankrupting it?" Okay, the thing to keep in mind there is that, again, Ron Johnson does not actually care about the deficit and bankrupting the nation, or he would have been a no vote for the 2017 tax bill, the one that blew a $2 trillion hole in the budget. And he's now supporting something. Well, he's not supporting this bill yet because it may put another $3 to $4 trillion into the deficit. But he was willing to change his mind 8 years ago. He may be willing to do so again. This isn't about saving the nation from bankruptcy. It's about cutting tens of millions of people off the access to their health care because he believes that, again, corporations should be making those decisions for you, setting the prices that you pay, the choices that you get, the legal rights that you have, the things that you can watch on TV and radio, and that there are enough benevolent billionaires out there that you should just trust the business world to make all of these choices for you, especially something like, the healthcare that could save your life. A local update is next for some of you. The rest will be back here at 7:30, where we'll talk to Corinne Hendrickson about Governor Evers and childcare next. You're up north. Dan Hagan, you're so sneaky.
Pat, tell me how you really feel about Ron Johnson.
We took that doorbell feature off here. Now I look over and I go, oh, hey, there's somebody here. So there you are. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Morning to you. Good morning, Parker.
Good morning, sir. How's it going?
Going well. What happened to Mr. Greg?
I took his job.
That's a shame.
he actually gets to concentrate now on being a co-host. So,
Okay, good for him.
Yeah, and not have to wake up so gosh darn early.
Yeah, I could see that being nice for him.
What are you anchoring these days?
I'm generally anchoring 5 and 6. And I sometimes help out with the 4 and the 10 when needed.
When needed? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 10 o'clock is not a regular thing.
The 10 o'clock is not a regular thing anymore. That just changed maybe last week. Just because we went through short staffing, but now we're fully staffed.
Okay, good deal.
And if you're trying to go through our website right now, Pat, oof.
I hadn't yet, but now I'm gonna.
No, I won it. Nothing that notable. We did play snowshoe baseball last night to kick off the season. Are you familiar with this concept?
Did you say snowshoe baseball?
Yes. So there's a team in Lake Tomahawk, which is just north of Rhinelander, that plays snowshoe baseball. This is snowshoes wearing, baseball throwing.
All right.
But it's
well, that's
the field is just wood chips. Yes,
the field is wood chips.
And many people fall and hilarity ensues.
Okay. All right.
I like this.
Sounds good. All right, we'll get going in about 30 seconds here.
Okay.
The Brewers lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates last night 5-4. Christian Yelich had a game-tying home run in the 5th inning, but the Pirates got a go-ahead triple in the 6th and hung on. In the past 7 games, Christian Yelich is 16 for 30, 14 runs batted in. So, I mean, he's just been on a tear lately. Freddie Peralta will take the mound tonight for Game 2 of the Brewers series with the Pirates. 6:05 the pregame on stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. And again, then there's the game Wednesday afternoon. Jacob Mizorowski taking the mound against Pittsburgh's Paul Skeens. That's going to be a great game. I mean, Dan Hagan would drive down from Rhinelander to see that game tomorrow afternoon if he could. He can't because he's a very dedicated Newswatch 12 employee up there in Rhinelander. But if he could get away,
I think I'm coming down with an illness, Pat.
You do.
I might
you don't
as well
sound
take the
good.
day.
You don't look good at all.
Right. Well, that's too far, Pat.
As
a former news anchor, that's bridge too far.
No. The hair and face look fabulous as always. But anyway, how are you?
I'm doing well. That would be a great game tomorrow. This Mizorowski guy is a phenom. He set some sort of record, right, with his first 2 starts.
Yep. I mean, when you start your major league career with 11 no-hit innings,
right?
That's all right.
More
wins than hits.
Than hits.
2
it's
wins,
just mind-blowing.
1 hit allowed in these 2 starts. Just crazy. So I'm really hoping tomorrow lives up to the billing because it would be so exciting to watch if it does. So
well, Pat, speaking of baseball, okay, I got a great story for you today.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're gonna dial down the skill level to approximately 0.
Okay.
Because I was involved with a game yesterday. So if you're not familiar, there is a phenomenon in a small town called Lake Tomahawk every summer, and it began for the season yesterday. It's called snowshoe baseball. So yes, the players are wearing snowshoes. It really involves more of a softball than a baseball. But people are running around playing softball more or less in snowshoes. A lot of falls, a lot of waking up with wood chips in between your teeth.
Sorry, which orthopedist is sponsoring this thing?
Right. There's probably a few injuries. A lot of people who shouldn't be doing that sort of sport are playing it. But it's an absolute blast every single year, and I recommend anyone to check it out.
And so you've been playing this.
Right. So this is an annual tradition that Newswatch 12 kicks off the season with the Lake Tomahawk Snowhawks. and they're going to be playing every Monday throughout the summer at 7:30 p.m. But if you want to get a pie, this is, some people go just for the pie. If you want to get a pie, you got to get there early because the pie will quickly sell out. There's pies from all of the local civic organizations, and this place is famous for its pie and its baseball.
Well, how cool is this? I mean, I would never have thought to combine those things. I feel like the guy that, the first time you saw Reese's, wait, you combine peanut butter with chocolate? Are you kidding me? Snowshoes and baseball. All right.
Yeah,
Good
it's
deal.
an absolute blast.
All right. How did you beat the heat over the weekend? Were you making the most of it outside? Were you hiding inside in the AC?
I saw a lot of people outside at lakes. So I think humanity is healing, nature is healing. We're getting back to what we should be doing. But yeah, the local lakes were packed. A lot of kids enjoying the water. There's always that one guy who's just sitting in a lawn chair, doesn't move for hours. I don't know how his skin is still onto his body, but
SPF 2000 will do that for you, I guess. It's
yeah, perhaps.
Or it's just all leather at this point, and it doesn't matter. So,
And
I don't know.
Also, God bless the world for air conditioning. Those are the
Yes.
two ways I beat the heat.
Oh, I know. I've got a friend who is staying at a place temporarily that does not have air conditioning, and he was talking about having like 2 fans blowing, overnight to try to keep cool. But I reminded him that, and again, this is not necessarily an old man thing, but I mean, air conditioning has only been like, shall we say, ubiquitous for not that terribly long. I'm old enough to remember when at best you had one little wall unit for your entire house, and we had a lot of fans, and that was half the fun as a kid growing up with a lot of fans because you could talk into the fan like this, and
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I like when people say like, "Oh, it was way it was way better back then." We need to
I'm not going to
replay
say
that.
better, no, but different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great things about many years ago. Like, oh, I wish I was a frontiersman. You don't have air conditioning then. You're probably
Yes.
gonna die at 4. So maybe think about that one a little bit,
A little
little more.
dysentery on the Oregon Trail there.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
exactly. What I always say is that if your great grandmother, churning butter outside that sod house of hers, if you'd have given her a microwave oven, she'd have used it. She
Right.
wouldn't be like, "Oh no, I don't need that." She would have loved having a refrigerator. So, it's just a reminder to appreciate our little modern conveniences, like air conditioning.
Absolutely. And have you heard of the phrase like survivor bias? Like the
No.
reason why like it seems somewhat great is, most people didn't make it out of childhood and probably till at least the 20th century, So
Yeah.
we got it pretty good right now is all I'm trying to say.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Also on the text line here, Jim from Brookfield says, my family saw the snowshoe baseball game in Lake Tomahawk in 2021. We enjoyed the pie. The game was a hoot. My daughters laughed the entire game. And I mean, look at that. You're making memories that are still around all these years later.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one person called me a clown yesterday because, we just kind of try some antics. I'm often more chatting with the people on the stands and actually playing. I borrowed
That's
someone's
okay.
lawn chair to go into right field because no one can hit it into right field, unless there's a
Exactly.
lefty up. So yeah, there are a lot of kids and family there, so
And
good family fun.
all right. So you're doing it again next Monday.
Okay, so here's the plan: is
Okay. You got
the
10 seconds to tell me.
The Snowhawks play every Monday. Newswatch 12 only plays the first Monday.
Gotcha. Okay. But fun stuff to see up in that area. Dan Hagan from WJFW and Rhinelander. Thank you, sir. Talk to you later. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk childcare with Corinne Hendrickson, and then later, Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area. Thank you for spending some time here as part of your mornings, powered by Up North News. More live from Chippewa Falls after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, there we go. So Dan, I'm going to actually can you send me an email with your
Sure.
mailing address if somebody were to mail a package to you?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. It doesn't tick. It's not a pie, nothing like that. So
Okay. I now that I now that I think about it, I do have a set of headphones I could definitely use.
Okay, but
if you want me to try that next Tuesday, or if you want to send me something.
Do they have? Does it have a microphone on it too?
It does have a microphone, yes.
Oh, well, let's try that next week. Because if not, then I can send these to Selena or somebody. But yeah, try. Can you bring those along next week?
We can make that happen. Yeah.
Well, let's at least experiment. So I'll hang on to these in the meantime. Till then.
Understood. Okay. See you guys.
See you later. Bye.
Have a good one, Dan.
Hey, Corrine, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for making some time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just great. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. So we've got 2 minutes left in the commercial break. So I'm going to tuck you back in the waiting room so you can make some noise, and I'll see you real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Tomorrow on the program, it's our Wednesday series of visits with all kinds of civic media friends. Earl Ingram in Milwaukee, Todd Alba in Madison. There's Melissa Kay in Wisconsin Rapids, James Kelly in Chippewa Falls, all scattered throughout the show on your Wednesday mornings, powered by Up North News here on the Civic Media Radio Network, where at 7:35, we're going to be visiting with Corinne Hendrickson in just a moment, a child care provider from the New Glarus area, about what to me was surprising news. And that was Governor Evers essentially drawing the first red line of the state budget cycle, saying that if the state budget bill that Republicans in the legislature sent him does not contain funding for the Child Care Counts program, he ain't signing the budget. You know, there's a lot that they can send him that he can fix with his partial veto powers, but you can't fix zero. And so he wants to make sure that Republicans in the legislature take this issue seriously. He gets it. More people in the legislature, more people out in the general public get it because of the work of so many providers and their allies and folks like Corinne Hendrickson, who joins us now from New Glarus. Corinne, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am actually feeling optimistic for once.
I understand that. Were you as surprised as I was to hear the language from the governor?
I was hoping for it. We kind of thought that maybe that was what was happening last week when the Joint Finance Committee did not meet on Thursday because Ag and Department of Corrections didn't seem like they would be the problem. It would be us, and that we heard that they walked away the night before, the Republicans walked away. So we were cautiously optimistic that it was us that was the sticking point, but then to have that confirmed yesterday was pretty amazing because childcare has fought really hard and long to be respected, and we are seen normally as less than and seen as babysitters. And we went from not even being part of a conversation 6-7 years ago during campaigns and things to like now the governor is going to veto if we don't get funded. It's amazing.
It really is. It's tremendous recognition of how Child Care Counts has worked in Wisconsin. So, and I apologize if we've got a bit of a weak connection, but we are hearing you just fine on this. I know that last week when Joint Finance canceled, I saw photos of child care providers who had gone to the Capitol and were standing outside this closed room because the meeting had been canceled. But it just spoke to the dedication of providers and parents and allies willing to go to the Capitol time after time after time to make their case. It really shows how passionate and how necessary this issue is for a lot of families.
Oh, definitely. And we thank our allies and we stand strong with our allies. We are really pushing for that 60%, some sufficient for K-12, because honestly, what's happening because the schools are underfunded for special education, when we notice that a child has something going on and maybe needs some extra support and we call the school, it's really hard to get them that support in the program at our place. It's also, if we don't have people who know what they're doing and educators, the teachers don't know how to support kids or how to refer kids, because of the turnover, then they don't get what they need either. And these kids, then we end up expelling them. We're struggling to keep them in our programs, and they are not getting the support they need till they're 5, 6, 7, or 8, which costs all of us even that much more.
In the Republican caucus, it seems, and I don't want to get too in the weeds about, political things like this, but you do have in that caucus, you have what I guess you would call social conservatives who frankly would rather a parent, usually the mom, stay home. And then you also have a Republican caucus made up of what are very much, your pro-business types who clearly understand the importance of a healthy childcare sector to the economy overall. So as they discuss among themselves, do you feel like progress is being made with people who maybe consider themselves conservatives, but they understand, the economic aspect of this problem?
Yeah, I think there is that weird, we support small businesses, but yet you're going to shut down 1,000 small businesses in our state by not funding childcare. They talk about not wanting to, have handouts for people or businesses, but yet we have handouts for agribusiness manufacturers, pretty much every single industry that exists besides childcare. We don't want to give money to people, but then Voss says we want to give money directly to parents. And so they're just full of contradictions. And I think they're trying, to my opinion, I think they're trying really hard to justify it to themselves. Honestly, their decisions.
Well, look, whatever justifies supporting it, however they get there, would be helpful because, again, Governor Evers wanted $480 million into child care accounts. And we don't know what ultimately is going to happen from this, but we know that some people were at zero because they were trying, like you said, they were trying different kinds of, tax credits and things like that. And I know we've covered this previously, but these tax credits, which seems to be the only tool that some conservatives know, they just don't work. They're just not. They're too convoluted for parents and for parents to use, much less providers, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Tax credits. I had to laugh when I looked at the Joint Finance Committee and their tax cuts and how it's going to save the average family $259 a year. That's less than a week of childcare. So, tax credits don't work. And they don't work because, first off, they're not actually increasing revenue for our programs. They're not able to give us the ability to pay people better. And they don't, once a year, getting back a little tiny amount off your taxes isn't going to do anything. And, it kind of goes along with that same hope of, you give money to, and it trickles down to other people. Well, that doesn't work. Tax credits have always been sort of a neoliberal way to compromise. And we've tried it for 40 years. It's not working. Let's do something new.
And one of the things that has also been suggested on the Republican side of things is, again, they love tax credits and they love talking about deregulation. But deregulation in terms of, well, we'll just expand class sizes or we'll reduce some of the requirements, the quote unquote, the red tape for providers. Again, those did not exactly seem popular when they were first proposed because they not only don't get at the heart of the problem, it almost sounds like they'd make some of these problems worse.
Oh, absolutely would make things worse. We can't find teachers. We can't keep family childcare because the workload is too heavy and too hard for such a small amount of pay, $13 an hour. And you're telling me I don't earn that I need to take on 5 or 6 babies in order to earn my $13 an hour? You're just going to increase burnout. You're also going to hurt those kids' development. If we want a strong society, if we want kids who are ready to go into the world when they turn 18 and become military or, next business owners or work for, a wide variety of different people, we need kids who are actually intelligent and can use their brains and, critically think. And when you put too many in a classroom with a teacher who cannot meet their needs, you're going to do the opposite and you're going to cost us that much more as time goes on.
Got on the text line from Tim in Wales talking about part of the reason child care accounts works is that, the assistance is given to the child care provider, which is a good reminder for me to take a step back for folks on the child care counts program itself. How does it work? It was funded by federal pandemic aid. The governor now wants, instead state funds to go into child care accounts. So that's what would change about the money coming in the door. How does the money go out the door from child care accounts? How does it work?
Yeah. So what happens is actually, this is the third go around in the budget that the governor has tried to put state money in order to directly fund childcare so we can pay our employees better and family childcare stay open. And so every single program that's regulated in the state is actually able to apply every single month. And we receive an amount for our operational costs and we receive an amount for our per child. And it's based on our quality rating indicator scale. So if we participate in Youngstar, and it's based on the number of children, their ages, we do get more for younger children and our teachers, full-time or part-time. And every single month we get that money and then we're able to offset the cost to our parents. For tuition, for example, most of us are sending out letters to our parents right now telling them that as of August 1st or September 1st, when this funding is gone, our rates are going to go up because we need to offset that loss of revenue. And we're doing that to help ourselves so that parents have a way of understanding what's going on, but then also to help educate the Republicans who consistently are saying and accusing us of pocketing this money and not using it to offset those costs for parents. So that if, let's say in October or November, they decide to actually do something for childcare and put investment in, then we can reduce that tuition back down as well. So, it's really one of those things that they just keep basically lying about us and accusing us of doing underhanded things. And it makes me wonder why they would assume that about other people.
So now we wait to see what they do in terms of putting something into the budget that they would eventually send to Governor Evers. And again, the governor bringing this up indicates to a lot of folks that negotiations are going on and that Republicans are coming off of the number 0 for going into childcare counts. But that still leaves a lot of room for Republicans to put not $0 in there, but not nearly enough as well to maintain the program. So when we hint at the potential for progress in negotiations, that's no reason to let off the gas in terms of trying to persuade legislators about the value of it, right?
Oh, absolutely not. We told everyone it's working. This tells us that what we're doing, the pressure that we're giving is working, because for the Republicans to walk away from the negotiating table and for the Joint Finance Committee to not meet indicates to me that within the Republican caucus, they don't agree, and that there is some that are feeling the pressure and may want to actually invest in childcare. And so instead of having a hearing that didn't go specifically the way they wanted, not knowing what the votes were, they decided to cancel. And so that tells me that we all need to continue contacting our elected representatives. Programs, if you're closing, which again, that breaks my heart, but I get it. You don't want to go into debt any more than you already are. You need to be loud and say exactly why it is you're closing. And parents need to be contacting and they're letting their employers know too, like, hey, without this, I can't come to work and I'm going to need a raise, and get those employers to also contact those representatives.
Yeah, because we have spoken in the past about, a study showing just how many childcare providers, perhaps 1 in 4, would close their doors if state support for all these centers ends in June. And that was a survey of childcare providers commissioned by the Department of Children and Families. It was produced by the Institute for the Research on Poverty at UW-Madison. So, I mean, these are the actual voices of people who can either be part of the solution or can, things can go south real quick if a lot of these places close their door. It's not about a profit margin, Corinne. It's about survivability.
Oh, absolutely. And for those who think that we were okay before COVID, we weren't. We were struggling. We were always relying on women with young children who are desperate enough to either open their family childcare or go work for a group center. And, so that their child is around other children and they can earn a little bit of income, and then we leave. And so we've always had this revolving door, and it needs to stop. It's hurting our children. It's hurting our families. It's hurting our communities.
Corinne Hendrickson is a family child care provider in the New Glarus area. Chris Hambuck-Boyle gets on Facebook to say, thank you, Corinne, for your knowledgeable, persistent, and caring advocacy for children. You and Brooke are greatly appreciated. She connects the dots for children, families, businesses, and public schools. I couldn't agree more. Corinne, thank you so much on short notice for taking time and commenting on the governor's comments. We really appreciate it. All right, there we go. Corinne Hendrickson. A little bit of a delay on that, but we definitely got the message through loud and clear. And that was the important part here, is that advocacy works. It doesn't always work right away. It doesn't work every time, but it's in that category of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if you don't want to watch child care centers go out of business left and right, you look for ways to support them in a way that is good for the state economy. A local update is next for some of you. And then in our next hour, we'll be together after the 8 o'clock news to talk to Chad Holmes. And then at 8:30, Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area. Live from Lake Wissota, I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, we are in a break there. And yeah, Corinne, sorry there was a delay there, but nothing you or I can control. We heard you just fine, and that was the most important part. Thanks for being willing to share all that with us.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, and glad to help. I don't have kids until 8 o'clock now, probably the rest of the summer. So if you ever need me last minute, I can jump on usually in the mornings.
That's great. Well, we'll continue following this then. All right, have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks.
See you
Bye.
later. All righty. Here we go. Always a little painful because if you then jump into the delay to say like, oh, there's a delay, then they go, what?
So after like 3 seconds.
You gotta just let it go. So
I appreciated that the only thing she didn't hear was you thanking her.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yes, that works well enough.
Yep. Exactly. So, okay. All right. I'm going to go find a few notes here. You say you can't get enough Todd Alba, and who can ever get enough Todd Alba? Well, he's going to be part of Matt and Air on Air coming up at 9:30. On he and I alternate on Tuesdays at 9:30, appearing with Jane and Greg. So you can catch Todd on Jane and Greg's show today at 9:30, and then on Todd's show at about 3:30 today, Alex Medorsky of the Nature Conservancy will be talking about the Nels Nolson Stewardship Program to conserve land in Wisconsin and prevent overdevelopment. Let's continue the conversation here about childcare for a moment. And we get a follow-up text from Tim in Wales who says, "Thank you. I had no idea how the program works. I don't think the majority do. I think if more people knew how the program works, it would have more support, how they get the funds, how the funds can be used, how they are tracked. Do all families get the use of the funds, or is it set by income?" And the short answer to that is that this is assistance for the providers. Here's an interesting way to think about it. And if we hadn't had a bit of a technical delay, I would have asked Corrine about this directly. But look at it this way. State aid goes to fund our education, our K through 12 public schools. Well, and now voucher schools to a very high price tag as well. But we pay taxes. The taxes go in part to the education of our children from kindergarten through 12th grade. And then there's also state support for technical colleges, the UW system, and more. What we're doing is evolving the system to say education doesn't start on the first day of kindergarten. If you've got quality childcare that allows parents to be in the workforce if they choose to, and you're educating those kids in a safe environment, then why wouldn't some of our tax dollars go there instead to the providers so that they can keep prices reasonable for the parents? Think of it as, the parents paying the child care center is much like we pay property taxes for our part of K through 12 education. So here's where I think you can get Republicans interested in this. What if the alternative to quality child care centers was expanding public education, public schools, what conservatives like to call government schools? Well, we don't have that for child care right now. But if we did, if we started, instead of K-12, it was, say, birth to 12 or something like that, and you went to, the local elementary school for your child care, and your state tax dollars went there, that would be one way to go, but conservatives wouldn't like that. What would they say? They'd say the private sector should do this. The marketplace should be doing this. Well, that's what we have right now. So if you don't want every, public school in the child care business, then you should want the private sector. You should want these parents, these community members who want to care for our children and who aren't part of a government system, but support them with our tax dollars so that our kids are getting good quality care, safety, education from the time they're very small until the time that they're out there in the workforce. And so simply expanding the model that says we together are going to care for our children, all of our children, and make sure that they have the best learning environment possible. That's good economic sense. So that's going to appeal to the pro-business conservatives in Republican caucuses. Now, unfortunately, there is a real divide in there. In that room, you'll have your pro-business conservatives, but you'll also have your social conservatives who will say, well, this just, encourages all women, usually, to abandon their kids in childcare so that they can go work and they shouldn't be so selfish and they should stay home with the kids. Well, that's a decision that you can make. That's a mindset that you can have. But as an elected official, in terms of what's good for all families in Wisconsin, what's good for the economy writ large, you're going to have to take a look at this issue and see if your social conservative policies are the kinds of things that you can impose on everybody else in the state, the kind of things you can impose on the state economy. Or do you merely state your case and say, this is what we'd like to do. Let's find the things that encourage at least one parent to stay home. Okay. Now we're talking about nutrition assistance. Now we're talking about health care. Now we're talking about affordable taxes for the middle class, not just for the highest tax brackets. There are so many ways to be pro-family and fiscally conservative and even socially conservative that don't cross some kind of a line of dictating how many kids you can have or have to have. It brings us back to that Sean Duffy piece from the New York Times yesterday, is you can encourage big families if you want, but if as a government, you're not willing to provide ways that make a large family an attractive outcome for a couple, then those are just empty words that you're saying. So take our tax dollars and do the best you can with them from cradle to grave, whether it's good childcare, affordable schools, or making sure you don't take away people's Medicaid when they're disabled or their Medicare when they're finally ready to retire. That's really all we want, is a well-rounded budget, both at the federal level and at the state level. And that involves much more than tax credits or red tape, you know? And the red tape one really gets to me, because we hear that all the time. Oh, we got to get rid of the red tape for the business community. We've got to get rid of the red tape for the business community. But look what they're doing with Medicaid. How are they going to cut? They say, well, we're not cutting. We're just making sure that only eligible people get it through all these additional work requirements, all these reporting requirements. In other words, all this red tape. Similarly, they may come back and say, you know what? We're going to put a whole bunch of money into child care accounts, but we're going to put so much red tape into it, like reporting requirements and other benchmarks, that many daycare providers decide not to take advantage of it because it's not worth all the hassle. The people that tell you that they're against deregulation and red tape sure know how to use it when they want to for their own partisan purposes. So we'll follow how this goes with the state budget debate as it continues to evolve in Madison. Coming up after the 8 o'clock news, we'll be talking to Chad Holmes from 98.9 WXCO and Dan Shafer, Civic Media's political editor and founder of the Recombobulation Area. That's all coming up next on this Tuesday morning, powered by Up North News, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. Love when the comments come in so fast and furious. I can't keep up with them. Empty words are their favorite words. No expectations of action. Not all of us have the capability to stay home with the kids. Some of us are single parent homes. Yes. Let's see. Thank you, Chris, for the nice words there. Tony, it's either child care accounts programs or high enough wages for single income families again. Yeah. I mean, again, costs, it's never been cheap, to have childcare. I can go back, 35 years and tell you that. But the level of affordability, the percentage of your income that these take. I mean, just look at college tuition. Parker, I can't even fathom what your tuition bill was like, when you were going, compared to what it was for us, which you, honest to God, could pay for with a summer job. That was enough to cover your tuition.
That's crazy.
That's not going to happen now. It's just not. No. So anyway, appreciate all the comments, everybody. Thank you. And we'll have Chad coming up next.
20 seconds.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Good morning. It is 8:06 on this Tuesday morning, June 24th, 2025. Nice to have you here up north. Parker Olson is in Madison Studio A2. Brittany Merlot standing by with the forecast. Chad Holmes standing by in Wausau. Did we ever figure out what the Wausau studio is? Remember we were saying that A is Madison and N is Racine. God, I remember bugging Luke about this, Chad. And you still, for you, it's like, I don't care. The computers work when I get in here, right?
As long as we're on the air, that's
as long
always
as we're
the
on
first
the air.
thing, right?
Okay,
You know,
all right.
no
Here,
fancy title for me. I'm not royalty around here. Just
I
I've
just
got
want
an
to get
idea.
all the jargon right. Yes, Brittany?
Yeah, I think it should just be Studio W for Wausau, right in the middle. Whack Wausau. Who knows, right? Something W.
our
There.
wax studio.
I don't think it was that, but I'll find out. Of course, Luke is off today, so now I'll never know. But anyway, Chad will join us from whatever mysterious location he's in, probably the one with the big WXCO sign behind him, coming up in just a little bit. And then Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area will join us at 8:30 to talk about things like Governor Evers drawing a red line around childcare counts and saying it's got to be in the next state budget. So we'll talk to Dan about that. We'll talk to Chad about more about the news coming up. But first, Brittany Merlot's forecast, where, again, up here on Lake Wissota, gorgeous. Just that front has come through. It's a nice light breeze, so it's not chilly for being, in the mid 60s. It's just that relief you feel when the heat dome is gone for a little while. You want the heat to come back eventually, but you got to have it in all things in moderation. And this morning,
Yes.
I hope more people get to experience this as that front eventually makes its way through the state.
I agree with you. I think everything in moderation is the best bet right now because we need relief in the rainfall down south. We want the cooler air to start to move on in just for a little bit. We still want summer here, of course, like you said. Temperatures right now in the 50s, far, far, far northwest, and near 80 degrees far southeast. We are looking at more sunshine north throughout the day today. You're actually going to stay dry, while a lot of showers and storms do want to spark up once again, especially by midday. Again, down south. Now, right now, this front is draped from about La Crosse to Green Bay. A few light scattered showers out there this morning. Of course, more clouds down south. Temperatures today will make it to the mid 70s to the low 80s. So quite comfortable out there. But again, that chance for rain. We saw some crazy storms last night. High winds gusting around 50 to 70 miles per hour, knocking down plenty of trees on top of roads, on top of cars. We saw flash flooding in Madison, a good 2.5 inches of rain, making it one of their wettest days in history on that day. And of course, it did collapse a roof, a Woodman's. You could see water just rushing in. It was some scary stuff last night. So rain, we wanted to ease. Unfortunately, though, this front is going to be sitting over the state for the entire week. So we're looking at excessive rainfall risks all week long. Again, today it is for a good chunk of the south where you could pick up another 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. But if you get under one of those big storms, you could see another inch or so, creating some flash flooding. That becomes more widespread tomorrow, but we'll track that again tomorrow morning.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on all of that here. Brittany, we were talking last time around about the college tuition and childcare and all the things that have changed in expenses over the years. Do you remember what the tuition bill was like when you were going to school way back when?
Goodness, it was a lot because, I went for my bachelor's and then the master's. So I'm kind of thinking more the master's, which is expensive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep. One that I can find here quickly online is, what prompted this was Alicia saying, my oldest kid's tuition for Michigan Tech as an out-of-state student, $54,000 a year. Wow. let's see, Wisconsin resident tuition. Let's see, back in 2010 was $9,000. Let's see, in 2000 it was $3,800. Back when I was going, it was under $1,000. $976 was Madison tuition at the time. Yeah. I'm telling you,
blows my mind.
a summer job could take care of that. I don't know.
That's insane.
Chad, you want to sit on the rocking chair with me and talk about how much more expensive things are today?
Well, I remember when I started after graduating high school, I went 2 years here at UW Marathon County, and it was under $1,000. So I mean, it was really a wonderful way to start, and the education was great. I mean, the change from UW Marathon County to UW Eau Claire was not a case of feeling like anything was shortchanged here in Wausau. It was a wonderful way to start, to be able to still stay at home and limit the cost. And even then, I mean, I still was paying back student loans for a long time after that, and I had cut it down in half because I had started here. So no, it was. I mean, frankly, and real fast, and something I wanted to mention is, we talk about the individuals when it comes to education. In my last local segment, I talked about this release we got here in Wausau, listing all the retirees from the Wausau School District, and it was a total of how many? I got to pull this up really fast. A total of 1,032 years of district service. I mean, when you hear, again, the discussions about the money and everything else, we got to remember, number one, the students, and number two, the folks that are so important in our lives. And I shake my head, and I give a big salute to Todd Alba for putting a light on the university funding issue that the Republicans are trying to slide right on through. But it's the same thing with the school districts throughout the state, and that people have to worry about getting a good education in the state of Wisconsin. It's amazing.
It was something we took for granted for the longest time, and now you do worry about the quality of some of those institutions. Brittany, where was your education from again?
I did it kind of different than a lot of people. So right out of high school, I started working like crazy. I was making the money, all of that, working multiple jobs. And then I was like, okay, now I know what I want to do. So I started to go to a community college. This was College of DuPage, which actually they have an amazing storm chasing program. If anyone wants to be a meteorologist, highly recommend it because it's, a smaller college, right? So the tuition's much cheaper. It's affordable. You can live at home. So I did that for the first 2 years. Then I transferred to the big Northern Illinois University, which was not too far away, but, I got to move out, do that college experience. And then I started working right away into my career. And then I was doing a master's degree through a distance program at Mississippi State University. So I was actually living in Duluth, Minnesota, Superior, Wisconsin, and getting that master's degree while working and forecasting.
Guys, how does it feel to know that she's smarter than the three of us put together in terms of trying to put together an education plan? Yeah, I suppose. That's like telling you this. Sun rises in the east, big old duh there. Brittany, thank you for everything. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the updates. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. You can catch Chad Holmes, of course, over at 98.9 WXCO. What else are you working on here? I can't keep you talking about tuition costs forever over here.
No, I mean, but it's vitally important. I mean, you look, obviously here in Wausau, that's Wausau narrowly missed passing a referendum last time around. So they are going through trying to, some of these folks that are retiring are not going to be replaced because they're trying to cut back because they did not get the additional funding because it was like 51-49, maybe even less than that in terms of a referendum. So it's a vital issue here in Wausau, and I think throughout the state of Wisconsin. But also talked yesterday on the program in my segments with, I'm sure Yi Lang Zhang. He had run for the assembly. Now he's the executive director of New Beginnings for Refugees. And he's starting a new role. And obviously it's a very challenging role in this era. They had an open house last night, and Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez was here in town as well talking. And again, there's so many, I would call them basic issues for humanity that are being battled for. And I do think, and I heard you talking in the first hour of the program, about the governor setting some, I think, some red lines when it comes to, you were talking about childcare, but I think there's got to be I think we are at the point where trying to massage some of these issues is not working. I think we have to have, I talk all the time about the battle of ideas. It's time. And when you hear people like Ron Johnson saying that his will to cut Medicaid is even stronger today than it was last week, I mean, I want to ask these folks. Let's go down the list of all these policies, these programs that have been put in over the past century. Let's start with Social Security and the 8-hour workday and a minimum wage. And do they want any of these? Because we have to get to the core right now of what the beliefs are of the people that are serving us in the legislature, in the Congress, in the state house, wherever it may be. Because right now we are, I think, are getting picked at, and we're going in the wrong direction. It's time to stand up. And even over the weekend, I got frustrated because Chuck Schumer again is just pussyfooting around on a lot of this stuff. We need strength right now, and that's just my 2 cents where we stand right now.
And this is why Tony puts up on YouTube in the comment section, "Spicy Chad, spicy Chad."
I'm curious, Pat. I mean, what about you? I mean, do you feel like right now that I understand the idea of, trying to, the idea of working together, but it feels as though working together is pushing the ball closer to the goal line for the right than it is right now for the rest of us?
I guess the only thing I'd say, and it will sound like I'm making excuses, but I'm not. It's that when people go, well, where are the Democrats? Where's Hakeem Jeffries? Where's Chuck Schumer? So, the voters made their decision. And so folks who are expecting that Chuck Schumer can somehow ride to the rescue and do what exactly? I mean, the best you can do is
leadership. That's all. I know the situation here.
Yeah.
I know that he does not have the ability to single-handedly stop a lot of the Trump agenda. But man, he is showing absolutely no leadership at all. And that is getting me very frustrated, and a lot of other people as well.
I can hear that. I tend to look at it as I've never relied on, a Senate Democratic leader or somebody to take the place of what we all are our best advocates.
I
we
agree
are the advocates.
100% with that. I agree 100% with that. I'm not one of those people that says, well, these people, we didn't vote for that. No, the voters did vote for what they're getting. I put responsibility on the voters. And that I was having a conversation just yesterday with somebody, and I mentioned Stephen Miller.
Yep.
And she had said, I don't know who Stephen Miller is. It's like,
I can't make people pay attention to the news. I can only try to make it attractive for them to come in and learn a bit more about it, because we can't get, a Barack Obama in every one of these positions to be, and it's not, let's just pick on Pete Buttigieg. It's not his job to be on TV every single day, bringing the stone tablets of talking points down from the mountain. We have to be the ones talking about these things, educate folks on the issues, get people like Chad Holmes all worked up, because then people listen and they go, yes, this is a problem, and I do want to do something about it. See, Chad, Chuck Schumer could never do that for me. You do that for me. And I appreciate that.
I'll get Chuck on the line and get him to do stuff too.
You'll hear Chad on 98.9 WXCO in Wausau in that area, or outside of Wausau. Get yourself on the Civic Media app and listen to Chad. Thank you, sir. Talk to you on Thursday. When we come back, we will talk to Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area in about 15 minutes. A local update is coming up for much of the rest of you. Live from Lake Wissota, I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Amen. Chad and Todd are two of the big reasons I appreciate Up North News and Civic Media. And Up North News doesn't even pay them anything. But yeah, thank you. ba, ba. Is that Hanson? Is that who that was? Who did you? No, it's more from the production library. Okay.
More production.
Welcome
I'm
back.
not stealing stuff. It's okay.
It's Tuesday morning. It's June 24th. Brewers lost to the Pirates 5-4 yesterday, snapping the Brewers' 4-game winning streak. Another home run for Christian Yelich, however, who's been on fire lately. Freddie Peralta is pitching tonight for the Brewers. 6:05 is the pregame, Brewers-Pirates. And then tomorrow afternoon, there's a day game. You might find one Parker Olson wandering around there with his box of popcorn trying to catch a foul ball. Or he'll never leave the seat because, I mean, it's going to be a great pitching matchup.
That may also happen. Pat, yeah. I got to ask you, how old are you allowed to bring a glove to the ballpark for?
Oh, anytime, because it's a safety measure, There's never a bad age to bring a glove.
Okay, good.
No,
I'm glad we agree on this.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see, from Jim in Brookfield, back in the late 70s, I paid both for my bachelor's and master's degree at UWM while working part-time at UPS sorting packages. I remember paying a full-time tuition bill under $400. Sorry, Parker, these probably kill you every time I read one of these things. Yeah. And Parker dies a little inside. But that is a conscious decision that was made by our political leaders to give less and less state support, and that the tuition is going to come up instead. And it was not always that way. There was much more of a premium put on people being able to get an affordable higher education. And we're just not appreciating it the way that, say, our elders did. Looking at today's Up North News Daily newsletter, Parker, I did want to ask you this. Los Angeles has the Hollywood sign out there in the Hollywood Hills. Sure. So, those letters are pretty big.
Yeah.
But did you know that Wisconsin has the world's largest M? As the letter M. You did know this?
In Platteville, right?
Very good. Yes. In today's Up North News Daily newsletter, there is a story about the Platte Mound M, a letter M written using whitewashed stones on Platte Mound 4 miles east of Platteville. The M stands for mining. Okay. Yeah. It was created in 1937 by students of the former Wisconsin Mining School, which is now UW Platteville. It's visible from 30 miles away. The M measures 241 feet tall, 214 feet wide. By comparison, the letters in the Hollywood sign are only 45 feet tall compared to 241.
A lot bigger.
Yes, it is. And just scrolling down now, there is a photo from Travel Wisconsin in there. And yes, that is a big old letter M. So
I believe that during homecoming, I think that they light it on fire, or have torches around it that they light on fire. I think.
Christina goes on to say that students take care of it every spring. The school's Society of Engineers adds a fresh coat of paint every fall. They weed whack it, and every homecoming, it says they set up, clean up, and light up the display. So it doesn't say torches here, but somehow they light it up. So torches wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, all that is in today's newsletter. You can get a newsletter 7 days a week from Up North News. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com to learn much more. Also from the text line, not Wisconsin related, but it makes a lot of sense to address this text from John in West Dallas, who says, how come we do not hear anything about Ukraine anymore? Where can I go for unbiased news about this country and the world? Well, second question first. Here we are. But as for why don't we hear about Ukraine anymore? And trust me, as somebody who's been in the news business for a very long time, it is as frustrating for me as it is for other people that certain things just kind of fall out of the news cycle, even when they're still going on, but the national attention span kind of goes elsewhere. But the war in Ukraine is still very much going on. And when I saw, John's text there, I went and looked at some of the headlines, and they include that Volodymyr Zelensky plans to meet with Trump at the upcoming NATO summit. NATO chief says Ukraine remains vital despite Zelensky's absence from a meeting of leaders. Russia is betting on some new unjammable drones to gain ground in Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine swap drone attacks as ceasefire efforts remain stalled. From yesterday, Russian attacks on Ukraine kill 14 civilians as Zelensky travels to the UK. So there are all these things that are still going on. And of course, coming up at the NATO summit will be President Trump once again taking the side of Vladimir Putin, once again trying to make Zelensky and the Ukrainian people out to be the bad people who somehow invited an invasion as a sovereign nation. And it is very hard living in a country where, look, the number of people who were alive during World War II, I get it. It's very small. But there's still enough people, baby boomers, early Gen Xers, who were around not that long after the war and cannot really believe we live in a country now where we have a president who has, as Hillary Clinton said, become essentially a puppet to Putin. And for a guy that wants to rebuild the Soviet Union, and had he not been stopped in Ukraine, would have gone so much farther by now into Poland and into the Baltics and other places. And that is still very much a possibility if things like this NATO summit coming up don't go well. So, John, no, these things are not in the news every day. I understand the news fatigue, but, the war goes on and people are still fighting to maintain their sovereignty, to try to reclaim the peace, and to try to prevent something that could, sweep up American soldiers before much longer. If, of course, they're not already distracted in Iran by other events from this president. Dan Shafer is coming up next. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're up north here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're feeling that one, huh?
I like production music where it's like, no, we're not actually that other song. We're totally different.
No.
We might have been a little inspired by it, but that's all. Yeah. All right, I'll be back.
No. Dan Shafer.
There's Dan Shafer now. How are you? Oh, here come the headphones.
Oh.
And here comes the microphone.
Good morning.
There he is. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Anything you want to add to the list here? I mean, it'll grow, but for starters.
It's definitely a good one to get started with. Plenty there to go on. So I think
shimming being potentially forced out. I'll get to that one as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go get some more coffee and then I will be back. I'll tuck you in the waiting room so you can make some noise.
Sounds good.
If you can't listen to us live, you can take us along and listen on demand wherever you go, whatever you're doing. You can just subscribe to us over at Spotify and Apple and any place else you get your podcasts. You can listen to past episodes at the Civic Media website as well, civicmedia.us. But yeah, if you're a regular Spotify user, we'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast as well. Not that you would be listening every day, but it would mean a lot to us if you were a subscriber and could catch us when you can't listen to us live. But if you are listening to us live, then you're about to hear the live dulcet tones of one Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area and political editor at Civic Media. Dan Shafer, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Kreitlow. Always wonderful to join you here on Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. And yes, I would recommend getting that podcast, subscribe to the show as a podcast as well as I do. Sometimes I listen to it on 2 times speed, so I hear really fast Pat Kreitlow in the morning to listen to all of the great things from the show.
I'm glad you said that, because I think maybe there's still plenty of folks who don't know that about podcasts, and there are a couple that I listen to as well. And now I don't listen at double speed, but I do listen depending on the host. It might be at 1.5 speed, or even 1.25 speed, and that way you're getting done with it a little bit faster. You're still getting it all in, and I really wish my DVR had that for TV as well. Because there's times I'm looking back at shows and I'm like, oh, if I could listen to this at 1.5 speed, that would be so much better. Because
you watch the Brewer game at 2x speed, so move through pitch to pitch a little quicker.
Well, yeah, if you join late, then you can get through the commercials and everything else. So no, but we appreciate everybody who's subscribing to us in one way or another. Let me ask you from a political standpoint, if any chance you were as surprised as I was, and in my case, it was a pleasant surprise. But a surprise nonetheless that Governor Tony Evers just came right out and said if there's not money in this next state budget bill for childcare accounts, I'm not signing this budget. And I think I get why, because you can partially veto a lot of things, but you can't partially veto a zero.
Right.
But what were your thoughts when you heard that he had actually put that line in the sand?
Yeah, I was encouraged by it. I think that's the type of moves that the governor should be making right now. We are now less than a week away from the budget deadline, and it does not seem like we are particularly close to getting that budget completed in really any way. But I think there's the difficult part of what Evers is putting forth here, saying that he won't sign a state budget that does not extend childcare accounts payments. Well, there's 2 things. One is, what level of payment is he going to see as an acceptable level to sign the budget? Because we know Republicans are not going to go all the way to the, 400-some million?
450 million.
450 million that the governor has proposed for child care accounts. Again, a program that has been successful in keeping costs manageable for families, keeping centers open, and keeping providers paid. And has proven to be effective. So it's something that the Republicans are really arguing with results by denying funding to this program. But I do think it's interesting, but I don't know if there is that much incentive for Republicans to really do anything here, because if Governor Evers were to veto a budget, it would just go back to the base levels of funding that we've seen from the last 2 years, which would include nothing allocated for childcare, because that has all been funded through what Evers has been redirecting through federal funds.
Well, that gets me to the question of whether all of this is just posturing. Is this one big head fake when you've got you've got a couple of state senators saying, well, they're not going to support what comes out of the Joint Finance Committee. And, is that division within the Republican ranks, or is that simply the means to an end to not pass a budget? And I talked about that on Monday with State Representative Francesca Hong. And I said, am I overthinking this? And her answer was, yeah, Pat, you're overthinking it. But I still think that may be very much in the, Robin Vos, Devin LeMahieu playbook of, we're going to say all kinds of things, but really when all is said and done, we have no interest in passing a budget, and we think we can run with that.
I think there's a couple different things with this. I do think that they will pass a budget and kind of dare Evers to veto it, because we've talked about, and Todd Alba was all over this last week on Civic Media with the potential cuts to the UW system. I think that would be more of a situation that could set up a potential scenario where Evers would veto the entire budget, because if they're going to cut $90 million from the UW system at a time when we have a $4 billion surplus, going back to those base levels of funding would mean not having a nearly $90 million cut to the system. And I think this is, there's going to be some mounting pressure on this too, because there are a number of groups, Citizen Action of Wisconsin being one. There are a few that are part of this coalition that has been encouraging Evers to veto the entire budget if it doesn't include adequate levels of funding for things like K-12 education or childcare or Medicaid expansion. So I do think those calls from the left, from Democrats, are going to ramp up. And I think, Evers has a challenging political moment ahead of him. That's for sure.
Well, because again, you can only do so much with your veto pen. You can only do so much bluffing. Gosh, the best thing in all this would be to simply negotiate something together. And we're still, for all the talking back and forth, I just don't know that I'd even refer to it as negotiating. I'm not in the room, obviously, but it really seems to me like it's a whole lot of talking past each other, because you've got in the Republicans, folks who will go so far out of their way not to give Tony Evers even the appearance of a win on something, and a win-win would give Tony Evers a win, and they don't want that. And I know I'm putting a lot of that blame on Republicans, because I am, because I've watched this long enough, because it's warranted. Yes, that's exactly the way that it seems from here. So, I don't think the date matters to them, that it's due, in 6 days, because they know the current budget simply carries over. So I would not accuse Republicans of having any sense of urgency on this whole thing.
No, and I think there seems to be a little bit of a difference between what's happening in the state Senate versus the state assembly here as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think, Voss, for all of his myriad of flaws and shortcomings, he knows how to get his caucus in line. And so he knows how to count the votes, and he knows how to understand when they have something to pass. And I think that is the challenge, is that the Senate can't seem to figure out how to count to 17 right now, because right now with Chris Kapenga and Steve Nass both saying that they would not support the Republican budget as it's currently being crafted, they don't have enough votes to pass the budget with only Republican votes in the state Senate. So either they're going to need somebody from the Democratic side to support them, or they're going to need to make changes to win over one of those two Republican members. That seems challenging as well. So I think that's why you've seen some of the different messaging come out of Robin Voss's camp versus Devin LeMahieu's camp as this continues to unfold.
We're talking to Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area and Civic Media's political editor, and he highlighted for us yesterday an article from the Washington Post that said how voters in rural Wisconsin could decide the House majority. And the article, by and large, is about the congressional district map in Wisconsin, which we're smack dab in the middle of the decade, which is not when you would expect there to be a change, but there is that potential, which is what the Washington Post was focused on, right?
Yeah, they're focused on that, but I also think that, you zoom out even beyond the potential changes to the lines, which I think would, perhaps have a real impact on the 3rd congressional district. But I think even under the current maps, the 3rd congressional district is going to have one of the most sought after competitive races that we're going to see anywhere in the country, between Derek Van Orden and Rebecca Cook, or whoever ends up getting that Democratic nomination in the primary there. I saw again, Cook this morning got the endorsement of State Senator Brad Pfaff, a former challenger in that seat as well. But I think just by and large, I think it's going to be, the race for the House, I think, is going to be really, from a national standpoint, a real highlight item. And of course, Wisconsin has to be some way or another at the center of this, because that's just how things go in our politics right now. Wisconsin has to just have all the attention right at the center of everything, right?
Oh, of course. It's just the way of our people. We have
That's right.
We lead the country in being evenly divided, because that's That's just how we turned out here somehow or another. And for folks on the redistricting thing who think that, well, again, it's the middle of the decade, how could this happen? Redistricting could actually happen almost at any given time. You have to do it after each census, but there's nothing that stops a state, and conditions sometimes change. Wisconsin has had that happen where redistricting has happened more than once within a 10-year period. So, right now it's 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats in a 50-50 state, which seems a little odd. And look, not just the state Supreme Court, but frankly, if Democrats were to take, the Assembly and the Senate in 2026, there's nothing that says they wouldn't redistrict in 2027. They wouldn't have to wait till 2031. That's just raw politics right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, we obviously saw the Senate and the Assembly get the maps redrawn for the last cycle. It would be interesting to see if it happens for the Congress in this cycle. I do wonder about this challenge, though, because comes from Mark Elias, right? And his legal team. They brought a very similar challenge to the state Supreme Court. I think it was 2 years ago, about the congressional maps, and the court rejected it. I don't know what is different about this one, other than the fact that they have made a certain ruling on the state legislative maps, and there might be some sort of level, of precedent there that might apply. But I do wonder if that is the way to really go about things. And I think there are, yes, it is 6-2, which does seem a little bit imbalanced. And if you kind of zoom out and take a look at the state, there are, I think, some real problems with how the congressional maps are drawn. I have ties to the Fox Valley, so I always take a look at what's going on in the Fox Valley. The fact that Oshkosh and Appleton are in different districts, it's always has seemed to be a problem. But I also think, the 3rd congressional district, that's going to be a toss-up seat under the current maps. And then I think the 1st congressional district, represented now by Brian Stile, he keeps overperforming the top of the ticket. So they need better candidates and better campaigns against him in that district as well. So it's not just the maps that is making this a 6-2. I think they could very well be 5-3 under the current maps after the next cycle. And if 1st district Democrats can figure out a better candidate to run against Brian Stile, that could be a different scenario too.
On the budget matter, Alicia raises an interesting point, saying on YouTube, I would mosey over to Representative Shay Sortwell's page and see the very public argument between him and Senators Andre Jacques and Mary Felskowski, the Senate president. And I'm looking at some screenshots of these, and sure enough, there in the comment section, Andre Jacques, Shay Sortwell, Mary Felskowski are all mixing it up in the sandbox that is the Facebook comment section about whether it's the Assembly Republicans who are the impediment or the Senate Republicans who are the impediment. Could I make the case that that's just not healthy at all to do this so very publicly? But this is what we have for, current leadership between the caucuses, between the Republican caucuses in the Assembly and in the Senate. We're talking to Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area. A local update is next for some of you. For the rest of you, more of us talking with Dan Shafer, then some final news and notes from here on Lake Wissota. Remember, you can follow me and my team all day long at Up North News. Just head over to upnorthnewswi.com. And of course, right here mornings on the Civic Media Radio Network. Have you seen these?
I have not. That's a good tip from Alicia, though.
Yes, it is.
Hey, at least they're having this debate in public, I guess.
Yes. Let's see. So Andre Jacques says, the Senate apparently wants to pass a budget on time more than the Assembly. It was the Assembly leadership that refused to let Joint Finance meet yesterday to work on the budget. While the Assembly may want to work with the governor more than it wants to work with the Senate, I'd really rather the Senate works with the Assembly first to establish the legislature's position. Shay Sortwell says, is that why the Senate has so far refused to do a joint caucus with the Assembly? Because they want to work together? Mary Felskowski jumps in. That is a completely false statement. Shay Sortwell says, Mary, well, then come next week. We'd be happy to have you. Oh, and back and forth it goes. So,
is it whose page is this on? I got to look this up now.
This is on Shay Sortwell's page. So,
on his
I think Facebook page,
official representative account.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. So, yeah, it's hard for me to make a promo for come over to the Up North News Facebook page if theirs is going to be more entertaining. But, hey.
I can always grab those screenshots, right?
That's right. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I see it now. Okay. Oh, this is fun.
There are 106 comments under this one now. Oh, boy.
How negotiations play out in the year of our Lord, 2025.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Of course, people putting up the popcorn memes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, boy. Everybody's just watching us read the comment section.
Secret show.
Yep.
All right, so what do you want to come back with?
Oh, wait, we got to talk about our stuff now? Okay. Shimming. We'll do shimming next. Okay. And then Ron Johnson on the Iraq war the Iran war is coming. So let's cut Medicaid.
Sounds good.
All right.
Secret show.
We got baseball tonight. Brewers versus Pittsburgh. Coverage begins at 6:05 on several stations throughout the Civic Media Radio Network. Let's continue the conversation now with Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area. When actually there's Recombobulation areas plural. If I'm not mistaken, there was a photo of you at Summerfest with a Recombobulation area. Was that at Summerfest?
That was at Summerfest, yeah. Okay. At the, like the Sky Glider, that the ride you can take. So I went with my daughter on the Sky Glider, and now at the end of the Sky Glider, when you're exiting, there is a sign that says the Recombobulation area. So of course I had to take a picture along with it.
Perfect.
The brand is strong. The brand is spreading. Mr. Kreitlow.
The brand is so strong. The other day, well, no, it's only Tuesday. What a week I'm having already. But yesterday, we were talking about a weekend article in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that said State Republican Party Chair Brian Shimming has been told that there are enough votes on the Republican Party's executive committee to oust him. And so he should hit the bricks. And he said, I'm not doing that. And that's where I think things stand right now. I don't know if you have any other updated information, but it's quite the contrast that Democrats have successfully handed leadership over from Ben Wickler over to Devin Remiker, whereas Republicans have a chair who just began his second 2-year term, and now it's not clear if he'll survive it.
Interesting story, to say the least. You know, I also noted that this story was published on a Saturday, which, you know, if this happened, you know, if the inverse of this happened, some of the talkers on a different part of the dial here would be saying, oh, this is media bias, burying the story on a Saturday to try and save face for the Republicans or for the Democrats or whatever it might be. But it is very interesting that, like, Shimming it does seem to be facing a whole lot of controversy. You know, I guess, like, they can go back to the fact that Trump won Wisconsin last fall, so a big part of his job was working to achieve that very result. So I think that is probably a sign that he's going to remain in leadership, and whether there is an actual ability for this executive team to oust him, who knows? But I think it just goes to show that there are, you know, there does seem to be some under the surface infighting at large for the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Maybe they can agree to get on board for Trump in the general election against Kamala Harris. But beyond that, not so sure if they have a clear direction, if their fundraising is at the level that they want it to be. I know you had a conversation about this with a guest yesterday on the show as well. I don't know if he seems to be pulling together the various coalitions that make up the Republican Party in ways that some of his membership might want to see.
Well, the running joke is the phrase Democrats in disarray. And I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying that right now the disarray is decidedly on the Republican side. And you can see it, issue by issue, like the conversation we had earlier today on childcare counts, that you have pro-business Republicans that see the wisdom in having a healthy, affordable childcare sector, but you have social conservatives who are not at all shy about saying, why do we even have childcare? A parent, usually the mom, should stay home. And you've got those two factions just on that issue alone. Then you throw in, a host of others, and now you throw in potential war with Iran. And you've got conservatives who are unhappy that the president is once again working the same path that other past Republican presidents have done, potentially dragging us into a protracted war in the Middle East. Ron Johnson was asked about that and said, does this change anything? And his answer to Maria Bartiromo was, yeah, it means we really got to get going and cut Medicaid and cut those 10 million Americans off of Medicaid. War gets him excited for Medicaid cuts. This, ladies and gentlemen, is your senior senator, as you pointed out yesterday, Dan.
Our senior senator, Ron Johnson. Yep. Asked on Fox News on, I believe it was one of the Sunday morning shows, if what's happening in world affairs happening with the strikes on Iran, the military action there, if that changes anything for how we look at the big, beautiful bill. And I think Ron Johnson, and I'll quote him directly, it says, "No, if anything, it just strengthens my resolve. How do we expect to defend this nation if we're mortgaging its future, if we're bankrupting it?" Once again, Ron Johnson's concerns about bankrupting the nation for the future seem to overlook the fact that he played a central role in the Trump tax cuts, which exploded the deficit.
Yes.
But not only that, just doesn't it get back to the every caricature that you might have of the Republican Party of kicking people off of healthcare in order to start unnecessary, expensive foreign wars? Is it 2003 all over again?
And for Ron Johnson, it's just so on brand. Like, how have we not closed all the orphanages yet? When can we bring back debtor's prison? I mean, the guy is just a Dickens character. And you talk about the prospect of war in the Middle East, and he's coming right back to, we got to rip healthcare away from people. That's the way that we get this done. For more from Dan, you've got to subscribe to the newsletter. Head over to the recombobulationarea.news. And Dan's on the radio throughout the course of the week on Civic Media. You will be on with Maggie Dawn tomorrow afternoon in the 4 o'clock hour. I believe that's a regular gig. I don't think I'm surprising you with that news.
That's right. I'll be on with Maggie. I'll be on with Jane and Greg on Matt and Air on Air on Friday. And I always post a roundup of all of my radio appearances from across the Civic Media Network at the end of the week at the Recombobulation area. So subscribe to get that delivered straight to your inbox too.
Everybody at Civic Media and at Up North News and Courier Newsroom, we're always encouraged, strongly encouraged to stay up to date on our social media posts and marketing. Dan's the good one. Dan puts on a class in how to do this properly, and we appreciate. We just try to follow your game, buddy. Thank you so much for the time as always. Hope you have a great start to the day.
Thanks so much, Pat. Be well.
All right. Take care now. And again, my thanks to not only to Dan, but to Corrine Hendrickson for being a guest today, along, of course, with Brittany Merlot, Parker Olson, and all of you for being here this morning. Tomorrow, we'll have Heather Dubois-Boren on and Denise Gomer-Hutchinson talking about the Wisconsin Public Education Network Summer Summit. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow morning here up north. And then we say goodbye to the live stream folks. Are they